Welcome to Let's Talk Tridactyls. We got a special show tonight. We have some people joining us. I'm going to give some links out to friends and family. Sorry I didn't send them out earlier, but that's okay because I'm going to let you guys in the group one at a time anyway, those of you that will be joining. Let's Talk Tridactyls. We got Maria with us here in all her glory. Kind of a bit macabre, right? Disrespectful? I don't know. Maria has donated herself to science, I feel. Ideally, her and her kind will be reunited someday in a world-class Ika museum. So anything going on in the world? We got Feng has released some nice comparison of the various bodies compared to each other and to humans. So let's go ahead. We're going to send the invite out to, of course, our friend, our Mr. Compatriot, Fat Jesus, who always has a interesting view of things, I like to say, right? And we're also being joined by Ricardo today. How exciting is that? He's going to give us a little breakdown of what he found as far as a Chalcolithic copper culture. I think I missed an X. I'll have to add my X too. That's the other thing I forgot. I wonder if people are catching me there. Let's talk Tridactyls. Welcome. My name is Mr. Ed. I am a former archaeologist and former paleotech, which is kind of rare. Maybe not in the museum world so much. And I used to run the education department, the Graves Museum of Archaeology and Natural History. So I wonder how our live is going. I think we've got some live stuff going on out there. Hopefully. Let's go ahead and send out an invite to Ricardo. And, Ricardo, if you're watching, we're going to bring you in a little bit. I always like to start off with just a little bit about myself in the beginning of the show. Maybe we can take a look at some of Feng's stuff. What a great name, huh? Of course, I don't agree with everything he says, and I don't think he was informed of my larva hypotheses. So I don't know how that's going to play out later. I did post some real interesting shots today could be some of our better tridactyl larva imagery on my X. Spend a lot of time on the X there, guys. TikTok's great for the little videos. I did a real good info meme this week, infographic, which covered a lot of the tridactyl morphology. We can take a look at that too. Let's go ahead and put that up on the screen while we look for some Dr. Feng stuff. Yeah. All right. Maybe we even just get rid of me here. That'd be nice too. You can just, or have all of me. Okay, look at that. You can make this a little bigger too, I think, huh? So let's see if we got anybody in the chat yet. Oh, we got people coming in. Look at that. All right, let's see what people have said so far. We got Fat Jesus, who we will add to the stream. We've got Mark coming in. And let's see here. Mark says AFK. We've got his buddy Sammy. Cool. And so this is the latest infographic made this week. Covers the parietal pineal gland, the infamous, I say third eye. It's really a third and fourth eye. The what I suspect is a dual brain being. And some people say, well, that just looks like two regular rear cavities in a skull. But these are very pronounced cavities with a very pronounced separation as well. And you can see on the outside of the skull. What else is interesting? These robust ear bones keep coming back from various sources, suggesting that they are related to pinnipeds or cetaceans or some sort of water mammal. So I think that is pretty cool. I wonder if can I get me on here too? Let's see. Hello, hello. We got Skywatch coming in. All right, Skywatch. You know, we got to get some. Man, we got Ricardo coming in here too. So that's great. Fat Jesus, before we talk to Ricardo, you got anything you'd like to talk about, say hello about?
Hey everybody, this is Fat Jesus Live. What's going on? How you doing? Can you hear me right now?
You're in a good mood.
Hey, yeah, man, I'm good. I got your shirt going on. Look at the
cool
shirt.
Oh, look at that. That is, I paid good money for an artist to make some art, and the most popular shirt is the one that I made, which is that one.
Yeah, I love it. I love this shirt. It's a basic looking shirt.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
I paid hundreds of dollars for a graphic artist, and my stick figure is the best.
It doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes simple is the best way to go, and that's why I love it. I love it. It doesn't have any words on it or anything. It's just simple. That's it.
Right.
And that's why I love wearing this. And I don't know. I just enjoyed it. I have a couple of other ones of your shirt. If you guys are really interested in some of Tridactyls shirts, just go to the tridactyls.com and he has a shop.
Thanks for the plug. I don't look as grifty. I don't look as grifty if you say it.
No, but you have really good shirts. I mean, come on.
And you know what? I'm actually like a month behind. I had promised myself I was going to update the store, and I haven't. So maybe your little inspirational talk here will get me going.
No, I'm being serious though. These shirts are really awesome. Make sure if you get the stretchy shirts, make sure you get it bigger than what your size is. This is a regular shirt, so get your size. This is a bit this is a 3X, so it is a bit bigger. So I should have got the 2X. I thought it was going to be smaller because I did get a stretchy shirt. There's a stretchy shirt, and I should have got 3X on the stretchy shirt, and then this one is a regular shirt, and I should have got 2X for it, and it would have been perfect size. Well, but it doesn't matter.
Like the speech you had about shirts, sir.
But anyways, I mean, we had a huge conversation about larvas, and I am coming around on the whole larva thing, and I have you have my complete support on them. I just am afraid that people are having a hard time trying to see the larvas, and I see the larvas, but I just want people to know that these larvas are there. It's hard for people of science and trying to see these things, and I just think that we need to put more scans on this and more people on this, and him and I, yeah, we agree that together that we need to test these more often, because we're in the beginning stages. We're in the infancy.
It's right.
Of Tridactyls.
It's like early adoption.
Yeah. I mean, in no way this has been going on for years and years and years. The Tridactyls are probably 1,000 years old. And if there was any manipulations of the Tridactyls in any way, even the ones that they found, the dolls the ones that they confiscated, most likely, now the Peruvian government did come out. They did come out. They had this huge congressional thing, like us, like in the U.S. government has a Congress about UFOs and all that stuff. Correct? They sat down, they ran their test, and the little tidbit that they forgot to mention while mentioning a hoax and a fake Tridactyls is that the dolls were made 1,000 years ago.
Okay, I don't know about that doll story. I want to get back to you on that. I'm going to put you on hold.
No, but it's true because I speak Spanish and I listened to the whole thing in Spanish, and they said that they were made 800 years ago.
I'm going to put you on hold. You tell me where that doll evidence is, and I'm going to bring in Ricardo.
Oh my gosh, I have to bring up the video.
And then after I talk to him for a bit, we'll bring you back. All right? So you got some time.
Oh my goodness. Now I have to bring up the video. Hold on.
I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right.
Welcome, Ricardo.
Welcome, Ed. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
Well, no, you don't have to welcome me because you're on my show now. You've had me on yours twice, and
yes.
I thought, a part of me is a bartender, and so I have the gift of gab, so I like to talk to people and listen. And when I go on your guys' shows, I'm too busy talking that I can't really even get any questions to you guys. So I thought I'd have you and Mr. Shaman on separately, and we could discuss some things.
Sure, of course. And I'm very grateful that you invited me, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
So kind, so kind. Okay, and I noticed that I even put it on the little ad that it says history, myth, and legends or something. Is that what it says?
That's
your little logo.
Yes, that's what it says on my logo. It's my personal channel where I started a few 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, creating some content, but it's the best that I could do at the time.
When I had your logo on next to my logo, I was sort of fascinated by it made me start thinking about, everyone has little logos, or they should, right? And I thought that was just so wonderful to have that there. And it has is it a dolmen?
A dolmen, yes. A dolmen,
yeah, it has a dolmen logo, like a Stonehenge type thing. So I thought that was very nice too. So that's a great place to just start. You said you created it for content. So obviously I know you and I know that logo. So what is the background of why I'm talking to you? How did I get to all of this here? How did you get to this stage?
How do I get this stage? So I always have keen interests in every area of knowledge from very young age. And when technology started evolving, I always had this nag seeing other people creating channels and displaying their ideas and talking to other people. And I thought, that would be cool, but it's probably too difficult to create. But then came better connection to Portugal. So we start having internet that is actually allow us to be trying to do these kind of things. And I went into, at the time, this is probably 15, 20 years ago, I started to go into Facebook and presenting some ideas. And I was
What year was that?
Oh, probably 15 to 20 years ago.
So like 2005?
Yeah, around that. And because, probably 2008, 9, now that you give me that frame of time, because my daughters were about 3, 4, 5 years old. And the topic of vaccination came up, and I went and deep dive in research into that. And so started posting strongly about my convictions, because my daughters are not vaccinated. No, I'm not talking about COVID. They are just not vaccinated.
In general.
So I can tell you that my daughters, I had never, ever had to go to the hospital with my daughters because they were sick. Never.
Okay.
Even when the other kids at school had something that was contagious, they stayed at home 1-2 days, they go through it, it's done. They pass through and it's resolved. The body resolves it. So, but what happened then was that Facebook didn't like it, and so it banned me from there. And from there, I went to YouTube and created a channel in Portuguese with the history of Portugal, and created a small channel with some good videos, not mine, but of other people, under the same account. The problem is they decided to block me on YouTube, and they kicked me out of the 2 accounts at the same time, and I lost all the content because I didn't have hard drives or anything to keep my content in there, so I lost everything. And so I had again to start from scratch. And that appeared, and then Twitter appeared at that, more or less, at that time, when I gained the courage to come back again into the public audience. Never stopping researching, but not on the public side. And so
what just to get a little off track, so your experience with all the social media platforms, do you have a preference? Have you found that one has worked? And of course, obviously the ones that haven't banned you are the ones you prefer.
I think I've seen a lot of criticism about X, but I had never had a bad experience on this platform. And I've been in it for about 3 years, posting heavily, interacting heavily with people. I know there are some obnoxious people out there that just because they think differently, they think they can attack you. But it's just a matter of being cordial all the time. We're fine to disagree. You don't disagree, go to other
You're a
places.
better man than I am.
I don't deal. I just can't get offended by someone's opinion. I just can't, because it's just one opinion, right? It's just like the dude in Lebowski saying, "Well, man, that's just like your opinion," right? Because until it gets physical, there is nothing to defend myself of. It's just ideas, and people are free to say whatever they want, and even if it is the most atrocious thing, it's their right to say it, right? And if I don't like it, I change the channel. It's as simple as that, right?
Fair enough.
And I think that X at this moment is a tremendous place where people of different creeds, different beliefs can get together and discuss ideas without being necessarily calling names one another. I know that happens, but I've been lucky. Perhaps it never happened to me, right?
I see.
So while on X in the beginning, it still was Twitter. I was approached by Guilherme Reis, that we know as Guy, and Guy introduced me to this group of people studying ancient global hallmarks. And I found that fascinating. They show me nubs, and they show me the exact names for polygonal masonry, this huge buildings of stone that we could see the same thing being done all over the globe around more or less the same time. And I found all of that very interesting. And I thought that group was a group of very good people. And so I proposed to two of them to create the Institute for Natural Philosophy at the time. So we did, and we found it. And that led me to start being online and recording videos, which I already done for History, Myths, and Legends, but without great success. I'm not that good in the production matters. So we now have a number of channels. We have a magazine that we hope to publish a new element, a new edition soon. And we are moving forward with a lot of projects that all born from that initial contact. And here I am.
Wow. So that's great. Yeah, you're definitely one of the people I've ran into on X. So X has been pretty comfortable and pretty exciting. Facebook, I suppose I have made connections over the years, but it just feels like a different sort of platform for sure. So yeah, you're one of the many characters. You know, back when I worked at the museum, we used to call ourselves, you know, the silly hat gang. So we all wore silly adventure hats, and paleontologists and archaeologists dressing funny. So for me, it's nice to reacquaint myself with people who are interested in history and maybe even a little bit of speculation into alternative history. And
without speculation, we don't advance.
It's sort of the first step, isn't it, really, of science in many ways? It's that thought experiment that takes place. So speculation is good. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because it kind of has to deal with of course, I do the Tridactyls, but I'm interested in general ancient history as well. And one of the things I was interested in is the haplogroup X, that many of the maps appear to show it, this haplogroup traveling east across the Bering Straits and into the New World. But when you look at the genetic pooling, it looks like Anatolia was one of the last places that this X group was, and then the Great Lakes region of North America. And so one other thing before we get into your topic is also the cave paintings, cave pictographs and whatnot. In Europe, from my experience, not only do they have tridactyl parallel symbolism such as cross-hatching, cordiform, reneiform, which is bean-shaped, spirals, and all of these tridactyl even radiations are in these European caves, but it looks to me kind of like the way the mound culture seems to spread out from the lakes, that these petroglyphs seem to be spreading out from well, your neighborhood and moving out and radiating that way. And those cave paintings are 30,000 to 50,000 years old, which makes me suggest, can we go back that far of people traveling? I'm going to predate, even go back before your paper is going to cover this stuff. Could we go back that far, I wonder? So just because of that radiation. So let's talk about the Copper Age and what you've found out as of late.
Well, what I'm calling my research is in fact based in probably 40 years of work that people did before me. However, their research, although touched the old world, because they are Americans, obviously they focus more on the evidence on the American side, and that is very well documented and researched for many years. And so they had this question, like Fred Widholm, that created or co-created the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society, where I gave my presentation this October. He had a question 40 years ago that is, where did the copper go? Because we have an average estimated by academic values of 500,000 tons extracted from the Upper Peninsula, and the maximum that we find of artifacts in the archaeological record only presents a maximum of 5,000 tons. So we are losing 495,000 tons of copper. Where did it go, right? And so what I did was to look into the old world, because the mines are very well documented, from the slag piles, that is what is extracted from the mine, and then it has to be smelted. Sometimes it has to be, I can't remember what is the process that has to be done before smelting for sulfide ores. It required
impurities or something.
Yes, so the ratios with a good ore, you can get up to 5% of weight in copper of what you extract from the land. So when you see enormous piles of slag that indicate hundreds of tons, it's just 5% of that was copper. So it's a very small amount. If you go to sulfidic ores, this is carbonate ores. If you go to sulfidic ores, it's 2 to 3%, right? It's a very small relation between the copper that is extracted and the material that was being mined. And we need to remember that during the period I studied, from around 4,500 BC to 1,000 BC, these people were mining with antler picks and stone hammer.
History time of the unknown.
So this is a very slow process.
So you're suggesting that they mined for copper with bone and
No, I'm not suggesting. This is the academic consensus.
Thank you for clarifying.
None of this that I told you so far is speculation. We can go to the speculation later. That is the part that I'm now, for instance, having to remove from my paper in order to evolve in its academic roots. So they are mining this sulfidic and carbonate ores, and they are having to transform it into copper. And this is a process that takes fuel. Well, if we calculate the amount of copper that we find in the archaeological record from 4000 BC to 1000 BC, and if it all had been smelted, and in the case of the sulfidic ores, if it had also been on the previous process that I can't remember the name right now, it means that we would find today no forests, nothing. Every single tree would have been taken down in order to process all of this copper. And so that's in Europe. And that's the results of my latest paper. There's fuel constraints in the copper production, because when academics look at this, what they found is the industry was the bottom scale of the consumption of wood, because the most important thing was fire for cooking, fire for heating, wood for building houses. And only at the bottom end comes the wood that can be used in industry to smelt copper, right?
I see.
So when we go look into the pollen analysis, the paleoenvironmental studies, we see that no such thing happened. These 100,000 tons of copper that we find in the archaeological record from 4000 to 1000 BC couldn't possibly result from smelting of copper directly from the mine. So something had to be introduced into this. And the first study, that probably is the one that you're talking about the ancient mines of the old world, what we see there is the total amount, maximum academic speculation of the total amount that was mined from all of these mines, including North Africa, Near East, the Balkans, is 1,100 tons. So how do we go from 1,100 tons to 100,000 tons in the archaeological record? So my question now is, where did the copper came from? Right? And this group on the other side of the Atlantic was studying this for so long and say, where did the copper go? Right? So you see the relation. So
wow.
There are academics involved in this research on this side of the Atlantic, in the Americas. We already did the first phase of testing. The results were very encouraging, but we didn't have pieces with provenance and provenience in order for the academic world may recognize the results. But this is very costly. And now we apparently the Heartland group from Jeff Lefgren and Boyd Tuttle and Chris Feinfrock and many others that I can't remember the name. I'm sorry. Even the person that donated the money.
Who are these people now?
They are from filmmakers to actually researchers to people that work in Lehigh University. There is the academic that is going to take the samples from the pieces that are going to be selected. And what we are trying to do with this new piece of funding that they have is to actually acquire pieces that have provenance and provenience, so that we don't face the same problems we faced the first time with the academic world in relation to the results.
That's a good idea.
Obviously, we don't expect that a big museum will grant us the possibility to create a hole into pieces that we selected. This hole is as thick as a human hair. That's how thin these holes are. And this has to be done following all the academic protocols. So it can't be us doing it. It has to be all done by the academic world. The taking of the samples, the preparation of the samples, the shipping of the samples, because the samples are going to be, at least if we got them in the Americas, they're going to Lehigh University to take the sample. Caltech is also involved at some point. Okay. And then they are prepared and shipped to Sweden, to one of the best, if not the best lab in testing metals in the world, that is Luleå lab in Sweden. So,
well, we're going to have to give some of this information to the Tridactyl researchers, perhaps.
Sure.
Because of all those implants. And, of course, those implants that the Tridactyls have are heavy in copper.
Yeah. So they are they can test now. While you go and see the literature, all the tests have been done, because they are old, in parts per million, right? And it's just like 17 isotopes, 20 some cases. These guys in Luleå with the new equipment, they are testing 71 elements in parts per billion. So it's extremely precise with just that tiny sample. A curious fact, it's a funny story, is the first time we did they did the testing, I'm including myself because I'm somewhat related. The testing was done. The Luleå labs, they are specialists in copper, and they had never seen mercury in copper. And they say, are you pranking us? What are you doing? You tainted the samples. There is no mercury in copper, right? And so he had to relearn all of this. They are the academics. They had to relearn that the copper from Upper Michigan was created under such specific conditions that not only is metallic copper, which means it's plus 99.9% pure copper, it's metallic copper. There needs no processing. It needs no fuel to be. That's why the relation to the fuel that we're talking before. It needs none of that. It's cold hammered into shape, right? And because the way it was created, the pressure was so high that the mercury, although it tends to evaporate after 500 degrees centigrade, the pressure didn't let the copper get out. The mercury get out of the copper. So it's the only place where there is mercury on copper native on the ground. So when they find that, they say, "Are you pranking us? This can't be. There is mercury." And then they had to relearn from geologists. Oh yes, the copper from that place has naturally mercury in it, and so they learned something.
I love things like that. Yeah, it just really lends credence to the discovery and the weight of the discovery when you wow a fellow researcher, right?
Yeah, exactly. What can I tell you? There is exactly what I call the focal points that show that we are going in the right direction. Is we have things like Otsis X, and we have things like Uluburum shipwreck. The Uluburum shipwreck is supposedly came out of Cyprus by proxy isotopes. I can't remember if it's tin or lead, but it's one of them. They identified for coming from Cyprus. And Cyprus, the very known name, Cyprus means copper. That's the name of the island. And this island produced a maximum during this period, 4000 to 1000 BC, produced a maximum of 35 tons, right? 35 tons. That's all they had to give. And yet, there were ships going all over the Mediterranean, like the Uluburum ship, that had 10 tons of copper in it, which represents up to 132 years of total old world production.
Oh.
Total. So the copper has to be coming from someplace. And when we start looking at the evidence, what we find is the copper was known way before the Copper Age by people that had gone, this is the speculation, although there's chronicles, but it's not academic. There's chronicles, there are texts, there are many places where you can go and look for this kind of reports, but it's not considered to be true by academics. But there are many things showing that there were contact with the Americas long before Columbus, right? And the indigenous, and I've been with some of them, they had histories of there was walls of copper, because you have to imagine that while we are mining in Europe for small pieces of copper, there are pieces with 28 tons of pure copper that can be taken out of the ground.
Wow.
Right? It's huge pieces of pure metallic copper that need no processing. There were walls of this there. And so the material was not important at the time.
Can you go into the ship again, the
Uluburum shipwreck, yes.
Uluburum.
Yes. So it contained 10 tons of copper and 1 ton of tin, which means it has the perfect mix to create 10 tons of bronze. The ship itself, to me, and this is speculation, because it was filled with items that were beyond luxury, beyond the copper and the tin, all that was in the ship was highly valuable. So to me, that was a king's order. And the king was ordered not only some highly luxurious items for himself or his court, he was also arming an army, because 10 tons of copper will allow you to do exactly that, create an army and arm it with bronze, would be a formidable piece. So I'm not so surprised that the ship was sunk. So there was some kind of sabotage, and the ship was sunk so that it never reached its destiny. So these stories of 007 are not recent. They are thousands and thousands of years old.
Well, yeah, there's a story in there for sure.
Yeah. So this ship to me is like a smoking gun, because it's coming from a place that produced a maximum of 35 tons of copper in 3,000 years, and it contains 10 tons of copper inside it. So the copper has to come from somewhere. And it's my conclusion, and this is not speculation or is an educated guess, let's call it that.
There you go.
That the copper was not being brought and distributed as such. It was going to hubs. And these hubs are the same places that have the tin, like Cornwall in the south of England, like the Don Anna's Park near Cadiz, Cyprus on the center of the Mediterranean. And it was these three places that were then receiving the copper in secret, transforming it as if it was theirs easily without spending too much fuel, because otherwise they wouldn't have the means. As I told you, that's anyone who goes look the paper will see it's impossible to do that. So because and so they could then distribute and make money from this copper by having the secret of where to obtain it, how to transport it, where it was, and so on and so forth. It's a very well kept secret. That's what I was getting at when the copper was not important, when these people saw the first time these walls of copper in the UP area. But then all of a sudden in the old world, copper became a very important metal. And so these people go, ooh, I know where is some, and I know when you can get it. Give me 3 months and I'll go there and get it. Right? Because the natives, to them, it was a sacred material, but they used it very sparsely. They took only what they need to create this or that artifact. It's not a gigantic industry, although we see, as you told, the Adina group that created all of those mounds, they have trade networks that go all of the Americas, possibly even to the South America. Right?
Yeah.
But copper, it wasn't something that they were using extensively. Right? It's something that they produce hammering by hand as they needed, right? And so these people arrive, they have this seasonal time to extract as much metallic copper as they can. They put it into oxide ingots that, by the way, they were exactly the keel of the ships. So they put it at the bottom of the ships because the ships didn't have a keel. And this gives the keel the ballast they need to face the waters no matter what comes towards them.
Wow.
See? So it looks like an animal skin pushed in the 4 sides. This is this oxide ingots, as they call them. That's exactly what was on the Uluburum shipwreck. So having this secret includes the secret of the maps. That's why when we go and look for ancient maps, we start seeing little pieces of America showing up. But that was known way before, because someone had mapped it already. That's why those maps were made. It's like the Peary's Race maps. It's even written there that this is a compilation of many old maps that I put into this one. Perhaps it had pieces because they hide. This is all related to some level of high levels of secrecy, because the control of the copper was the control of the world at that time, at least of the old world. So maybe that's why still today we don't agree that we went to the Americas before Columbus, except for the Newfoundland Viking landing on that place. But there are many other things that indicate that the old world and the Americas were connected long before, even with China and other.
Yeah, definitely. So could you paint for the viewers maybe a sort of speculative narrative of a tale of this copper process, and who was making it, and who was sailing it, transporting it?
That's the hard part, because we know very little about those things. I think that way before the Phoenicians, this is already being done. Who were exactly the peoples that transported the copper? I don't know. What I can tell you is the hundreds, if not thousands, of stone anchors that were found in the Azores Island, right in the middle of the Atlantic, what they would use the Amok current to go. So they would go to the Canaries and then go all the way into the Gulf and the St. Lawrence River. And then they come up through the Amok, and that takes them exactly to the Azores. And the Azores, the Amok bifurcates and takes them directly to the UK, or takes them right into the Strait of Gibraltar, right? So perfect. But in this island, in the Azores, the Terceira Island, they found these stone anchors. And these stone anchors, by the hundreds, if not the thousands, have all the same hole in them. That is 14 centimeters. I don't know how much that is in inches, but it's 14 centimeters. So it's about this size. So about this size. All of the holes, no matter the size of shape or the size or shape of the stone, the hole is always 14 centimeters, which is very peculiar, right? Unfortunately, this is now in a military zone that you can't visit, obviously. But BBC had done a small reel of it a few years ago, interviewing the academic that brought this to the world. But because he is an engineer and not a proper archaeologist, the archaeologists all refute it. And not only that, but it means that the Azores were populated before the Portuguese got there, and so it was not Portuguese after all. And so who got there first, and who has the right to the land, and so on and so forth.
That's going to come up, yeah.
A lot of this has to do with geopolitics. Because even the fact that Columbus is defended to be the first is because of this manifest destiny thing. They had the right to take the land from the natives because they were not Christian, they were not civilized, they had no writing. All of this lies. Some of them didn't, but some of them did.
Right.
And who knows how much was lost or how much was erased from history.
Destroyed, yeah.
By the colonization by the old world into the Americas. So I can't tell you exactly who was doing it, because we don't even know who was mining it. We don't know if it was the natives working for the merchants, if the merchants took actually teams that work seasonally for 4 or 5 months, taking this copper and preparing it and then putting it to ships, and everybody come back, because they leave no trace. The people that work there leave no trace. There is no contamination of ADN. There is very few things left back. We find a few Roman coins, we find some Phoenician artifacts, we find languages, we find stones and tablets with languages that were only discovered like 200, 300 years after they were documented to be found, and still they are declared as fake because they don't fit the narrative.
They don't fit the narrative.
Sure.
Let me ask, has Africa answered any of the research?
Well, part of the Heartland group that is involved in this testing and in this history for a long time, they decided to prove that it was possible to sail from the Mediterranean to the Americas constructing a ship only with the methods we knew they used, with only the woods that we knew they used, by the size they used to be, and they built a ship called the Phoenicia. And this ship sailed circumnavigated Africa with success, and then was laid on dry ground for 10 years forgotten. And 10 years later, with little repairs, they decided now it's time for us to go to the Americas. And so they pick up the boat again with little repairs, put it in the Mediterranean, and the only place that gave it recognition was the Tunisian group, that even the ambassador made a feast for them for their departure and so on, because they believe that this was done. They believe that they participated and the copper was coming from that side, that this contact was permanent between the old and new world. And so this boat sailed into the Americas without a problem. And in fact, the only problem they had, it was in the Mediterranean. They almost lost a man in a storm.
Wow. Yeah, the storms can get crazy in the Med.
But not crossing the Atlantic. And so I regret it, because I think it's very unfortunate that no highlights were given to this, because it will show that anyone can cross. There's people crossing in a canoe. Yeah. There's people crossing in canoes.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you're into the whole, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to call it, I'm going to say it, Atlantis. Atlantis is still a good name for this global nautical empire. And like I mentioned, that haplogroup X. So when I heard about the metal going from the New World, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. There's already a genetic connection. But it's funny when they show the maps, they show it. It's the traditional map. Anatolia's here, and then they show this path going east into Bering Strait. But in reality, when you look at the clump of the genetic material, it is the Great Lakes, North America, and Anatolia.
Can you see this?
Let's see.
I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So this is right after Cadiz on the Don Anna Spark. And this is a LiDAR image enhanced by computer, so we can see it more clearly. So there would be no green, right? Well, it's not Atlantis, but it's the same construction. This is a Carthaginese hub, a Carthaginese gigantic harbor that is now completely underwater, right? So the most fascinating for me is that after discovering this, they kept looking around here and they found 60 meters under the sea, a wall going from here to here. It's a huge distance with a small entrance here. This would be the first line of defense of this port, right? And if you see, it's typical construction that reminds people immediately of Atlantis, obviously. And this was one of the hubs of the copper until the end of the Copper Age. In fact, by the end of the Copper Age, they were working just with small pieces and sending those pieces as far as the Balkans. Most of the ingot copper discs like this size that are found all the way on the north of Europe came from this area around here. They were still doing it, although the copper was not only arriving, and they were using everything they could. The purity went down the drain, everything, but they still kept it until it died completely by the Iron Age.
So where is this exactly that we're looking at, that map?
This is right after Cadiz, in the Mediterranean. You cross the Strait of Gibraltar, you sail for, I don't know.
On the north side, right?
I did that, yes, on the Europe side. I did this on a boat. So it's probably sailing, it's probably 4 hours after crossing the Strait of Gibraltar to your left. It's as basic as that.
Yeah.
And it'd be as big as you could not miss it. So, and this
you mentioned
were the hubs.
The importance also of the copper. And, of course, I have my own theories on that, is that copper produces a patina, a green patina, which I suggest, just as I suggest the green jade stone complex for the Pacific Rim was because of its relation to the ancestors and their skin color, is one of the reasons why I think copper was so highly valued, because it turned into that wonderful patina.
Green.
While I've switched over here to the Tridactyls for a second, I want you to look at this. Maybe you've seen it before. This information that I put in my slideshow here. Maybe we can just look at the metal for a second, if you don't mind.
Just replying to the Fat Jesus Live that is commenting now on the video. Then you have the Periples of Anno that was even previous than that. So the Periples of Anno went at least at half of Africa after crossing that bulge. I have an image for that, but so it's with a huge fleet. They were making cities along the way. So to say that we didn't have the possibility to cross the ocean is just ridiculous.
Right. It's almost with these things that there is like a hang up. There's some sort of mental baggage that's stopping people from even speculating, which is kind of sad to me that we can't even get to that stage. So check this out. This is AI, so I don't know how much of it is accurate, but this is just some of the metal, because I've always said that, people are concerned about the chromium in the metals. And I'm more interested in, as we talk, if there's any North American Great Lake copper in the metals, or if you notice too on, which one is it? If it's here, right here, unnamed hand implant, iron chromium alloy. So what's also interesting about that is that you have a very complex metal and you have a very early metal as well. So any thoughts about what you see here on this?
Sure. So I can tell you that Josefina copper is mined copper and probably originated in the South Americas, because it's can you make it bigger? Thank you. It comes from cuprite and malachite, which are carbonate oxides. So it's mined copper. It's not float copper or metallic copper. But then it gets interesting, because on the second one, you have cold hammered copper silver. Well, one of the peculiarities of metallic copper, especially from we're talking about the UP, it's that it has high content of silver. So you can actually trace it back to a specific point if you actually test it by isotopes. So this one is very promising. The silver copper alloy is very promising as being, because first of all, it's cold hammered. So it leaves very little chance that it's not metallic copper because it's cold hammered. Right.
You mentioned that earlier. So
yes,
that's great that it came into play here.
Yes. The
What else
gold.
do you see?
Well, it doesn't indicate what kind of copper it is on the gold, silver, copper, but considering it has silver, gold was easily added to the mix, and even more silver was easily added. So all of those that says copper, silver might be the copper itself carrying that silver, because when you look at the metallic copper, you can see the veins of silver in it in many of the pieces that are extracted. Yes.
So this is a topic I'm really not familiar with. And in fact, even the metal implants, I barely even look into that. I'm more interested in the biology and some of the archaeological artifacts.
And this is interesting me looking at things like our iron chromium alloy with nickel plating and even osmium. That it's almost unbelievable, I believe, to the academics to consider that this might be
and I haven't seen
ancient times. But
the osmium or the
But what I can tell you is this: I'm
interested though.
There is this idea that we didn't work iron, that we didn't know how to do steel. And to me, that couldn't be further from the truth, because they say it didn't work, it didn't exist because we don't find the furnaces. Well, to me, this demonstrates they have no idea. They didn't have 5 minutes to look into how the most ancient knowledge we have of producing iron or steel. In fact, steel of the highest quality possible, right? That we try to mimic in the high quality steel that we produce today. And this was done by archaic method. And they say, oh, there is no evidence of mining iron in those times. Yes, but they didn't need to, because if you go to the Japanese, right, they still do it today as the most primitive people did it back then. They construct like a sarcophagus structure of mud, right? And they fill it with fuel to the fire. And then they throw like a ton of iron-rich sand that can be found in so many places around the world. It's just iron-rich sand. And this fire, this fire is worked.
Sort of a primitive kiln is what it is, right?
And the fire is worked without rest up to 36 hours without stopping. And when finally the man in charge of the operation, by the color of the fire alone, says it's now, they have about 3 minutes to destroy the whole kiln. They have to destroy it completely. So there is no trace of it.
Why do they have to?
To extract the metal that is all at the bottom.
In the process, because it's sand.
Yeah, no, the sand, the silica, and the glass will melt, and leave only the iron. The iron would be, imagine that you are putting honey into a surface. The honey would be higher in some point, like a topographic map. Imagine a mountain on a topographic map. That's the piece of metal that will be at the bottom. But on top of that piece of metal, in certain areas, will be what they call tamagane. And that tamamahane is what the swordsmiths that do the katanas and did it so back further in time.
Oh, that's the pure metal that they want for the center of the sword.
High carbon steel that we try to replicate today. And we do it, but we do it by very advanced methods. And we took a long time to get to that purity that the Japanese could do 1,000 years ago. So this is our small pieces like this, very thin, small pieces that they then put on top of one another and put on their kilns, and they melt and they start making the sword by melting and by bending the metal over itself, creating the layer. So if you bend it 6 times, you have more than 1,000 layers in the metal. That's why it's so resistant. And the trick there is to put a spine of iron. So because these katanas have a spine of iron with the steel, the high carbon steel that is the blade itself, the back of the blade is iron. So what this does is when they go and cool it after it's done, the sword till that point is completely straight. But when they dip it in a very ceremonial way to cool the metal, the ratio of cooling of the high carbon steel and of the iron on the back, on the spine, is different. And so the sword bends. And that's why Japanese katanas are curved, because it's when they are cooling it, The difference of the properties of the metal makes it bend and creates the typical shape of the katana, right? That's what gives it its shape. That's why the curves are different from one sword to another. You can't find two times the same shape because it's all a matter of how naturally it expands and contracts.
How exciting. I had no idea.
Yes, and that's what gives it its power. Let me explain. I know we are getting out of topic, but I'm into
What's that
fencing.
folding of the metal, right? That gives the steel its strength, correct?
Katanas hardly break because the spine, the iron spine, is soft and absorbs the impact, while the edge of the sword is high carbon steel, very brittle, but very sharp. Right, so that's why in movies we see they clashing the blades with one another. That's completely fake. You can look anywhere for fencing; it doesn't exist. You don't parry with your blade; you parry with the side of your sword.
Right, the flat.
So, because otherwise it immediately creates a dent because they are very sharp but very brittle.
Why would you do that, right? Why would you?
Yes.
You just ruin your sword. In fact, you probably cut into each other.
So exactly, they go into one another. That they are so hard and so sharp, they would actually go into one another. So the sword is so powerful and could cut a rapier or any European sword because it has this power of two metals in one piece. One that is soft and one that is very hard. A hard to cutting and the soft to parry. You see? And that's what gives it its power. But all of this to say that we could do not only iron, because the iron that stays at the bottom has no worth to them at all. So 95% or 99% of all the material that they produce in those 36 hours, to them is just, okay, give me $5 for that and take it. It's just scrap. It's all to produce those small pieces of high carbon content that they call the tamagane. That is the material they use to produce the sword. So what I'm telling with this is there's many places in the world that have high reach sand around. So that's all they need to produce iron. It's just a matter of if it is valued.
Stone kiln to make this. It is something temporary.
And they couldn't find any residues of it because they destroyed it all to take the metal out. There's nothing left to be found. On copper, we find these kilns and these furnaces, some still in place where they were producing the carbonate and the oxidite and the sulfide ores were being smelted. So we still find lots of those, but we don't find any for iron. Why? Because they were completely destroyed. Because the heat has to be much more intense for iron than it has to be for copper.
Right.
So the techniques are completely different.
So what is on the grand scale of things, what is the global significance, or what is the historic significance of this, what would you call it, a metal network?
Well, the implications are so dramatic. Yes, the implications are so dramatic that is highly contested by the academic world, because it would force not only that we restudy and had to work again to understand the Copper Age and the old world at that time. We had also to understand the new world of that time as part of our history at that period, right? Which it doesn't exist. It's just some people with butt flaps, with spears and stones in there. There's no culture. There's no. That's why there were government and official proceedings to destroy this culture as much as possible. Even archaeologists sent to sites just to deny their existence and eradicate all the evidence and collect everything, so that we didn't find any advanced culture in the indigenous peoples of the Americas. And this is all documented. Anyone can go into the records and see what was done to actually destroy their culture, to remove the children, put in normal schools, artifacts, destroyed of mounds, the denial of occupation of the land. And
it was probably easier to erase a people if they were not a civilization and not.
Yes. So this is all related to this manifest destiny. That is, we could only come to America and colonize it if these people were uncivilized, absent of culture, and nothing but savages.
Yeah.
And so that narrative was kept, because otherwise we couldn't claim the land, because there was someone already there. But you know that there were Welsh already there. We have the story of Madoc, for instance. The Welsh were already there. So
what's the evidence of the Welsh?
You have the Welsh caves. There is
with a primitive script.
Yes, we have scripts and chronicles showing that when the last big impact happened in our recent history, I think it's around 400 AD, that destroyed England and caused the story of Arthur and the journey to try and find the Grail to heal the land. When that impacted, Madoc was at sea with a fleet, and the impact threw him into the Americas. Right? And so they stayed there for a while. This guy died there. This is Arthur II, if I'm not mistaken. It's called as Madoc. He died there, and they kept him in this cave that is called the Welsh Cave. And still today, it's called the Welsh Cave. And so the cave.
Further research, I think, for some of us.
The cave.
And the sword making.
Yeah, the cave has these unique properties that creates perfect mummies. So the body was placed there, and it was later on reteased.
And you mean alloys, correct? When you say that?
No, it's how do I explain? So apparently the cave has a crack, and every rain that comes, instead of flooding the cave, goes through that crack, and that pulls all the humidity out of it. It's like being in sand, in the heat. It takes all the fluids and creates a perfect mummy inside that cave. So according to the story, several years later, and I learned all of this by Rick Osmond, that he recently told this story in our Roundtable Chronicles. He was then taken to England, and then stayed on the cave that is still there today, and it's called Arthur's Cave or something like that. And then finally it was moved by a big building, I can't remember the name right now, but it's a very important building today in England, where the most important people are buried, and it was transported to there, and that's his final resting place. But this is a guy that's been in the Americas. It's in the Chronicles. The same Chronicles that are accepted for some things, but are not accepted for others.
Oh. So I've always suggested that the sword from the stone was an analogy, a metaphor for metallurgy, for actually mining and creating swords.
If you think that you can pick up a piece of metallic copper and just hammer it into a sword, and it will be the most pure that you can get, instead of having to use a furnace, right? Because what they're doing, these hubs, what they're doing after receiving this pure copper, is just to spend a little bit of fuel to heat it up to about 400 degrees centigrade and pour it into molds. And everything was made into these molds, because you just have to put it down. You don't have to prepare as the ore copper that requires much more working on it. So they put it into molds, and that's how it's done. For instance, this takes us to oxysacs. Why do we think that we are fairly certain, 99.9% certain, that oxysac came from the UP area? For a very simple reason. Because it is 99.77% pure copper. And the only thing that can be done from ore is a maximum, and this is extrapolating because most didn't get there, is 99.6% purity. So everything that we find that is above 99.6 purity has to have come from the UP area. There is no other way around it, right? But we can't just prove it by just saying it. We have to actually test it and show it. So, but according to the academic records and the academic reports on purities of copper and how it's processed and what is the final result, most of the copper is 98.7, 98.8, 92.3, some places 94, 99.4, right? And oxysacs being 99.77 is way above that. Sorry.
What are you saying this is? Oxysacs?
Oxysacs.
Oh, oxysacs.
Oxysacs. So
right. So it's how much copper is that?
his X about this size is 99.77% pure copper,
Yeah.
with high content in arsenic. What arsenic does is simply lower the melting point. So you save even more fuel by doing that process.
Okay.
And Otzi's X is very interesting because he's the very first passion crime. And I call it passion crime. It doesn't mean that it's because someone loves someone. No, he was shot in the back. He was left to die, and he was not robbed. So whoever shot him went straight into him, broke the shaft that had pierced him, left a point in him that almost came out in the front. It's just a little bit from coming out from the front. So it's a very close shot. Shot him from the back, broke the shaft, took the shaft with it, and left him to drag himself slowly through the snow until he finally died. And he tried to take all of his stuff while he's dying and crawling. He takes his bag, he takes all his stuff that is dragging him down. So we see this trail when they found him from the defrost. All of this laid a path that he crawled through until he finally died. It's very awkward that you kill someone and don't steal something that would be extremely precious, that it was his axe. His axe was a precious thing on itself, and it was not stolen. It was something that very few people knew how to do, and you have to pay to get it one. And they didn't took it. He had a pouch full of medicine herbs, which someone think he was a shaman. However, by analyzing his hair, they found that he was severely poisoned. He was going to die anyway because he was suffering from severe poison from arsenic, the same thing he was adding to the copper, right?
Yeah.
But he was also, in my opinion, he was the one to create his own axe, not only from the poison of the arsenic, because his axe has high levels of arsenic in it, but because he mixed tiny little things that made his axe special compared to the technologies of the time. He had a little bit of silver. He had a little bit of tin. His axe is almost halfway between copper and bronze, to the time that this would be a high evolution in technological terms in metallurgy.
Why do you think they left the axe behind?
Because their intent was to kill the man. That's why I'm calling it a passion murder, because there was something he did in that village where he just came out of that led someone to pursue him during a storm. You don't pursue anyone when he's going through a storm. First of all, is the fact that he's going through a storm on a mountain, which you normally don't do. You wait for the weather to cool down, to calm down, and then you make your journey. But he decided to make the journey during the storm. He was hunted during that storm and was killed during that storm. And whoever did it was personal, because they got close to him and broke the shaft and took it with him. And left everything that he possessed there. The only intent was to kill him. So either it is a metallurgical secret that was to be kept, envy, or he did something that people didn't like on the village. So academics tells us that his axe come from Tuscany because by proxy testing of isotopes of lead on his axe. The lead came from Tuscany, not the copper. And most of the copper that is tested, and they say they came from here, they came from there, they came from Cyprus, it's because of the lead proxy or the tin proxy. It's not the copper. They don't test the copper because they know if they test the copper, they'll find purity levels higher than 99.6%, and they don't want that. In fact, in order for me to discover the actual purity of Otzi's copper, I had to contact the museum and the university directly in order to get the information, because they don't want to publish it. They didn't want to publish it. It's nowhere in the papers.
Wow.
Right? And I got a chart from them that I can put in here on screen. I got a chart from them saying 99.77% purity among two other values.
Those great numbers. Really
that's why they don't allow us to test the copper in.
Again, I bring up that map. The way they show the map is misleading.
Sure.
It doesn't imply a sea voyage.
Sure.
We talked about that route around Africa. I've suggested the same thing too. These sea routes were probably known for 50,000 years around.
Oh, yes. Look how hard it is to get out of Norway and go through land all the way, close to land, coming out of land, hunting, staying a little bit, keep going, you'll be in Americas in no time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard to do that. You don't need to actually cross the Atlantic in one go.
Right,
Even
right,
if you
right, right,
go
right.
close to land, you'll get there in no time. I think it's
Yeah.
much easier to do that on gigantic canoes that they had. You have to remember that when Columbus got there were canoes bigger than his ship.
Yeah, and with oh really?
Really, that's in the chronicles. The canoes were bigger than his ship. And we know
Wow.
for a fact that probably 500 to 1,000 years before he got there were gigantic canoes transporting materials from North America to South America through the Gulf of Mexico.
And with and if sea levels were down in deep time before that, there would be even more places for docking and along the way. You could
Exactly.
follow a whole probably chain of islands.
And you have other evidences. You have corn in India where it shouldn't be. Like 100 years in statues, 100 years before.
I talk about the yam belt, the
Yes,
tuber belt. Across the equator, you can find yams, which people say are indigenous, but in reality, someone had to have brought those tubers across the oceans.
absolutely. And
Another sort of connection that just that
yeah.
I suggest. I think I even said to you previously, instead of just looking for a physical evidence of a global empire, we can look into the morphemes, the sound bites, the just little bits of sound. In fact, even when you talk about copper, to me, copper and other languages allude again to a theomorphic name. That first syllable to me is a god name, is a theomorphic name, whether it's the so.
Well, we hear yesterday. I heard a presentation explaining the deficiencies in the academic explanation of the Earth's magnetic field, because the inside of the Earth is nothing, according to today's science, is nothing as it is in the books. It's not a nucleus, a mantle, and a crust. It just doesn't exist as such. It isn't as that.
What
But
is
you
it?
go well, because if you go, you can look for low shear velocity zones, and you'll get maps of the current understanding of the interior of the Earth, and it has nothing to do with that. There are huge voids inside the Earth, huge
Interesting.
voids.
I think I'm going to bring Fat Jesus on, so he
Sure.
too could ask you some questions, and he might have some other things to say that maybe I didn't cover, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
I was just going to say that this individual, Rick Osmond, he believes that the copper, that relation of the copper being a highly metallic material, is one of the reasons we have a magnetic field.
Oh,
There's
oh,
trillions and trillions of copper in the whole surface of the
yeah.
Earth.
I just want. That's what it's funny because I wanted to bring him on because I think that sounds like some sort of topic he'd be interested in. Okay, so repeat that again since I've interrupted us twice.
On what? Sorry.
Repeat what you said about the core and the copper again for everyone.
So what I was saying is, if people look for images of low shear velocity zones, that's the most accurate image we have right now of the inside of the Earth, right? Because there are many things that contradict the current science. For instance, when the Russians digged 7 or 8 kilometers into the Earth, they had to stop because the material was so hard that drills that were prepared to go double the depth couldn't perforate the material. And at that point, material should be so viscous that should be no problem in perforating the Earth. Moreover, they found signals of hydrogen coming out. There couldn't be hydrogen at that depth. So the project was completely abandoned because they couldn't go further, but the scientific reports still remain and are still ignored. They are scientific reports, but they are ignored because what they showed doesn't fit with what they were being told. And so one of the things that I learned here, and I can't go as in detail as Rick Osmond told it, and you can go and watch the show and in the Shaman and the Philosopher channel, is that, sorry, in the Institute for Natural Philosophy, because we did it live, is that the copper itself that exists on the Earth is one of the reasons we have a magnetic field. It's that friction, that rotation, that energetic potential that creates the magnetic field. It justifies, for instance, that when I look at Mars, it's very rich in iron, but we can't detect copper. So, and it doesn't have a magnetic field. See? You are muted, so I can't hear you, Ed.
There are many myths about deities inserting a metal cylinder into the earth.
Well, one of the ways you have to
What do you
create
think that myth could be alluding to?
because it's the easiest way to produce energy. What for they needed the energy, I have no idea. But I can tell you, if you put an iron and a copper tube into the earth, you'll get 1 volt of each one of them. So if you have 12, you have a battery of 12 volts constantly loaded. If you have 24, you load a 24 battery volt 24/7. You have people living in the desert with a few hundred of these things sticking to the ground and giving electricity for all the things they need. No solar panels, no visible ways of sourcing this energy. So, and I have the plans for that. If you're interested, I can send you the plans.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
How to make that.
Interesting. All right, here's Fat Jesus. Let's see if he has some questions for you and comments.
Good.
He's talking about Titaria. They have stolen all the copper, and now they're using it for power sources.
Well, Tartaria was the working force from Preston John.
Yeah,
that's a completely different story.
I know. I was reading about it. It was very interesting. So I was reading about the sulfur in the earth and the mixture and everything is underneath I guess it's under the plate tectonics and everything like that, all surrounding, and it's like evened out like towards the earth core. And I believe what you're saying is that our earth core is probably mostly copper. You're pretty much saying that.
No, I'm saying the earth's core is empty.
Oh, it's empty. Wow, empty. That's incredible. Because I was taught in science, and I'm old school, that we have a metal core.
Yes, but if you look into the science that tries to justify that metal core, says that it can't be there.
Oh wow, I didn't know that at all. I was always taught in my science classes that we had a metal core, and all the other planets had metal cores, except for a few others.
What happens there is there's a point of G gravity right at the center. So they predict there is a place with 800 to 1100 miles, not uniform, but there is a cavity with that area that has nothing. And if you are right at the center, what you feel is gravity pulling you out and not in every direction. Another point on that is that the point of highest gravity is...
So it's upside down.
Yeah. Because if we follow that science, it will tell you that the point of highest gravity should be the surface of the Earth, right?
There's no way for us to even know that unless
we know.
I mean, to drill downwards. Sure. Yeah.
But the point of highest gravity is halfway between the crust and the nucleus. That's the point of highest gravity on the Earth.
How do we get there? How do we go down there?
Because what is that produced gravity? Mass.
Yeah.
So the place where you have the most amount of mass around you is in there. That's why they deduced that the center of the planet has a whole cavity that is empty. Because if it wasn't, then the point of highest gravity would be at the center of the mass, because it's where the most mass exists, and that's exactly what happens between the center of the Earth, the nucleus, and the core and the crust. That's the point of highest gravity. So this changes a lot of things that you would have to rewrite, like the very mathematics of it. Because even Einstein and the other guy, I can't remember the name, contemporary to him, what they related is that the center of the Earth would have something like a Rosencrantz bridge at the middle.
What's that?
It's like a mini wormhole, like a black hole and a white hole at the same time. Because and this is some speculation from my
Would
part.
this exist on every planet?
That's what I'm getting at. After he gave
So I would assume that we test this theory on another planet instead of on our own
sure.
planet.
What I concluded after his presentation is that if matter is produced at the core of a star, and we know that the core of the star will have the same behavior that this science is predicting on any object that is huge in mass, be it a star or a planet, right? They are being created on near this point of zero gravity. It's where elements, for some reason, from vacuum are produced. And then they express themselves by coming to the surface of the star through different speeds, different temperatures, different coolings, and they produce all the elements. We are made of stardust, all of us. Every single thing is made of stardust. That's why I named my book Stardust, because we are all stardust.
What are the possibility between Jupiter and Mars that there used to be a planet and it kind of imploded itself because of all that?
Well, we know one planet that did, and it's the planet that is between Mars and Jupiter. That now
Mars and Jupiter,
that the Greeks call Phaeton, and now we call it the asteroid belt, and that is being reduced by academics because they say, oh, we measure all the blocks of stone that are in the
what's the name that they called it?
Phaeton with PH.
Phaeton
with PH.
Because let me look it up. It's
Ton.
Ton. Look, you mentioned, I forgot to ask you about that. So yeah, you're an author. Can you tell us about some of the books you've written?
So I've written my first book many years ago is called Stardust, and in it I tried to make an explanation of the history of science, consciousness, free will. I tried to bring people into the understanding that science is not that cemented thing that we all believe it. It's all built on suppositions, and after the suppositions then come reality. So it's like, give us a little miracle, as Terence McKenna used to say, and we'll explain the rest. And that is not only at the creation of the universe. You can find this same method for so many things, including gravity, including the explanation of how the Earth is inside, and so on and so forth. This happens constantly. In fact, if people go and watch the brilliant presentation by Rupert Sheldrake, that is called, can you remember the name, Ed? I can't remember the name right now.
I don't know that.
It's
I could look it up for you.
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but he did a brilliant presentation that TEDx decided to ban. He banned him because of that presentation and censored it, because he has this book and these many speeches where he shows why what we believe to be solid science is actually built in sand castles. It's only after the sand castle that the mathematics and all of that works, because it was made to work. It's not because it's the actual explanation of...
Yeah, so it says here, the Science Delusion.
Exactly, that's it. Science Delusion.
Most famous and banned TED Talks.
Exactly. It's very interesting.
I have a question here. What about those supposed poles under the pyramid?
That's from Steve Wilbur?
No, that's Bionti.
On YouTube.
So I have serious problems with that. Because as you're saying, you speak Spanish. I also understand Spanish and Italian, because I always try to read in the original. And although I didn't have
that's good
school, I taught myself to read in French, Spanish, Italian, and so on and so forth, even English, which I never had teachings of.
Wow.
So I listened to the presentation in the original language. So I endured all of that.
Yeah.
And then I looked to the actual technology that they are telling us that they are using. And there's a problem with that. While the first images that they present when they tested the technology on the dam and what they can see beneath the dam and so on is all correct, because it's within the depths that technology can achieve, when they go to the pyramids, it's a complete fallacy. I'm sorry to say it, because that technology not only cannot go through water, and we all know that the Mokattam structure, that is where the Mokattam plateau, that's where the pyramids are, it's an aquifer. It's filled with water everywhere, right? That's the first problem. The second is it can only go to a certain depth, and they are going almost a kilometer down. The second problem is they said they found a Tugnesium block that they couldn't go through because sound waves don't go through Tugnesium blocks. That's a complete fallacy. You can look at right now, and we know exactly how fast sound goes through Tugnesium, right? And it's completely permeable by sound. Sound can easily go through Tugnesium. So there are many inconsistencies, and I think that their problem is that the AI is creating 95% of what they are presenting, unless they have some secret that they are not telling.
That's crazy. You know what? AI. I mean, I just ran into a person from India that has created all its content, and I had to report it to YouTube. All of his content is filled with AI, even the narrators between and I know you and I know, Ed, it's a girl and a guy creating the whole AI, like the whole narrator, like between each other are talking, and there's no authentic communication. There's no human being involved.
Right.
They're communicating throughout the whole thing, and it's 2 hours long. And it's like real.
But is it educational?
No, it's not. There's fake everything inside of it. I had to report
I've taken my
in there.
own paper. I don't know if you guys have this. I took my own paper and I ran it through the Google AI talk show. And next thing you know, you have a man and a woman talking. You're like, so this guy Ed Costas wrote this paper. Oh yeah, what's it about? It's about these tridactyls. Oh wow, tell us about that. And it's insane. Just because I uploaded my paper, you get
He sent it to me. I was like, wow.
You get two people. You should try it. It's
well, there is this AI system that is called Notebook, if I'm not mistaken.
That's the one, I think.
Yeah, that I use to create small descriptions of books that people wouldn't read. So what I find fascinating about this is that at the beginning it was very bad. And then they started to evolve the AI system, and now you put a book in there for them to create a small podcast, like 6, 7, 8 minutes of
Insane.
it, and they go and relate it to other subjects, and they enrich the content. So it's not a bad thing, because you wouldn't read the book anyway, and you have the opportunity to learn something from it, because it's not. Until this point, I didn't find any of them I'm completely fabricating. Yeah. I'm fabricating material. No, it sticks to the material, but now it even creates relations. It goes to the other place and the other place and associates things.
If you have an AI that is reading the book out, like on Amazon, if they're reading the book to the person and reading the words out, that's something different. But I'm talking about creating content that has nothing real in it, that is talking about something unbelievable, mythological, and saying this is real is off the wall crazy. Because
you said mythological, and I see Ricardo, are you involved in a fantasy book, or are you just promoting someone else's? I've seen some fantasy like posts. Can you tell us a little bit about? I know a little off topic what we're talking about, but you are an author, and so.
Middleverse has just released for
very cool,
for pre-acquisition his new novel called Aaron.
Go check it out, guys.
Yes, and it's he also already available is the visual guide for that world, because this individual, which I'm very fortunate to know personally, he created not only the history. He created the history, the mythology, every single element of the biosphere, the environment, everything. So it's
about world building.
Yeah, it's a complete world building, and this is just one of the planets, right? He's going to release.
What's the name of the book?
Aaron. If I'm not mistaken, I think there is someone
ARAN
in the chat. There's someone in the chat that can put the correct name, but I think it's Aaron.
Well, I think it's here. I'll look it up to be safe, but I think you're right.
And he creates all the visuals.
Is it by Jim Shepard?
No, it's by he doesn't put his name there, but his name is Michael Rocha, and he's the genius behind the multiverse universe, or multiverse. So, and it's I had the privilege to read parts of the book when it was being created. And it's a fantastic story and somewhat relatable, as every good story is, as Lord of the Rings or Star Wars.
Is it part of Dungeons and Dragon or Dungeons Accountant or what is?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's not related to that.
Gotcha.
And did I see recently you brought up Lord of the Rings that you did not care for the Rings of Power series? Is that correct?
No, I think the Rings of Power is just an abomination.
I think it's the word I saw you use.
I wrote that. I don't know if that's what you read. I wrote a piece, and I wrote 3 pieces. That's 2 pieces, and I thought, no, I'm still not happy. I want to write this as if it was the voice of Gandalf. And so I made the critic.
I did catch that you did you were a bit verbose, and it was very Tolkien-esque, I think.
Yes. Well, I tried to put it in the voice of Gandalf, saying that they didn't destroy anything, because people that follow Tolkien and his histories knows that this doesn't belong there. You can have and I mean that's just a good point for general fandom, that I've found it very liberating to no longer care about canon or background, and I just look at content now as its own thing. Rings of Power, it's its own thing. But whatever story they're telling, listen. So whether I agree.
Star Trek or Marvel or any of that stuff.
But Ed, I agree with that. But then yes, I agree. And people are completely free, and I would even enjoy it. But don't say that they are tremendous Tolkien fans and they are respecting his history and respecting what he was trying to tell us from his tales. Just say that we are inspired by Tolkien and we created this history. Don't use the same name of the characters. Don't try to reproduce the characters and transform them completely into imbeciles, right? Because you don't pick up a person like Galadriel, that it's not a fighter, he's a woman of power by itself. He doesn't need to be arrogant. He doesn't need to be a Karen. He doesn't need to be an idiot. She's a figure of wisdom and power by itself, the way it was created. Can
you do me a favor and type it in on the private chat on the bottom left-hand corner on there? That way I can put it up for everybody else for them to find it.
The book?
I find it very interesting.
You're talking about the book?
Yeah, the book.
Okay, give me a second.
Private chat on the bottom left-hand corner.
Okay, I'm just going to get the link.
What a great show today. We've got Ricardo, and he is telling us about the Copper Age, books he's written, authors he knows. We got Fat Jesus here adding his own insight, and I see Thundercat in the chat amongst a lot of great people. We got Mark right here from Boca Raton in the hood. In fact, that reminds me, Mark, I do have to roll a Tridactyl head giveaway, because I'm really hoping Mark wins. So while you're looking that up, why don't I get that done right now? Because it takes a little bit of time to give away the.
I sent you a message.
Prize.
Okay, I'm gonna put it now on our chat. If I find the chat, here it is. No, I just closed it. This is the general chat. Where do I find our private chat?
It's on Restream, the one he sent you the link for.
Private chat is on the other side.
Yeah, on the left side. Yeah.
Where is it? I don't even know where the private chat is.
There it is.
Where's private chat?
It's on the left. At bottom left.
See, invite guests.
No, I have private chat as the last button on the left.
I realized I don't have that. Well, that's interesting. What else do we have to talk about today? Have you written any other books, or just that one?
Yes. I'm very fascinated with the ancient technologies of the megalithic world. So one of the ways that people contact me that were looking into global hallmarks is because I was putting out of a lot of information about archaeacoustics and archaeastronomy. So in the world of archaeoacoustics, in the academic world of archaeoacoustics, you can find things that are beyond our current understanding. They are what most people would consider to be as magic, because these places are built on specific nodal points of the telluric energy of the planet. They are built on top of fault lines. They have underground water running. They are built with specific mineralogy and specific sacred geometry rules that create very special places. So you have between Agar Quinn that could send messages 60 kilometers across the Mediterranean to the island of Lampedusa. You have Goparello, that is a castle that resisted conquering for 600 years because it creates an infrasound that when people hear it, they go insane. They face their worst fears. You have loss of limb control. You start to attack your friends instead of pursuing your enemies. You have.
So you're suggesting there was acoustic weapons used in the ancient period?
Yes, without doubt. And this is academic. This is not speculation. In fact, the Romans perfected that technology and tried to adapt it, but they soon found out that they couldn't take it to the battlefield, right? So they have to use it only where it already existed, because they didn't know about the fault lines and the undergrounds. The underground moving water they tried, because if you look at Baalbek, there is a huge tower that is now destroyed. Well, that tower is exactly as the tower as you find in Groparello. The difference is, instead of a hypogeum beneath it with the underground moving water beneath that, they created a reservoir next to it to create the same effect of acoustics. Somehow, either they took it too far and blew up the tower, or the people that wanted to conquer that place knew that they had to destroy the tower in order to be able to actually invade it, right? You have the ancient city of Gore, a city with no defenses, with about 0.6 of a mile circumference of a circle of like a little bit of earth wall that's very like half a height of a human. It's the only line of defense, and yet we know that when Alexander the Great reached to the valley where the city of Gore is placed, he sent a wave of his soldiers to conquer the city, and they all started fighting one another. And they run in fear, and they drop their clothes and run naked and screaming and so on and so forward. He couldn't conquer that city, so he flooded the whole valley. He destroyed the dam and flooded the whole valley, killing everybody in there. And the city was discovered 600 years later by a sheik that in a matter of 6 years conquered 3/4 of his country after getting hold of that city. We have West Kennet Long Barrow, where when the tests of the academics done there, they actually open a portal in the first room to the left by using 440 beats per second with a drum on the court in the forecourt of the structure.
You know, I'm reminded too that, again, bring you back to the Tridactyls, that there was an artifact that looks like the Gorgoneon, the Medusa-like shield that was said to be used as a weapon to.
Sure. You know the myths of the sirens, right?
Yes.
So the sirens are found depicted on Agar Quinn. And Agar Quinn is straight to the Mediterranean. It is shaped exactly as an 800 megahertz antenna, the wave. And these are representatives of these fat ladies that are the sirens. Mm-hmm. Were placed there, and they would sing into the structure, and according to the effect they wanted to create on the people that were at sea, they would sing different tunes into different chambers, and they could either say to them, "Come, we are here, this is the way into safety," as they could make them mad as sirens would do, and they would crash into the waves or kill themselves in the boat and then crash into the rocks. This is what the origin of the myths of the sirens comes from, is from this sonic technology, right? And most of the ancient world was ruled by sound. We know today that stone can store an information. We are doing it in labs now. That's why one of the things that I have in the book, by the way, is called The Resonant Earth, that you can find on Amazon. I describe all of this. resonant earth, and how all of this is being trying to be replicated today in labs, because it is real, it's not falsified. And the archaeoacoustic people that study this in the academic sense, they know this is real. They have tested it. We find in the city of Alatri, there are 9 gates around the city that all are aligned to astronomical elements. When they put their cameras to detect magnetic energy in the air, they have these CRT cameras or CRC cameras. I can't remember the name. It's a camera that is, the sensor is transformed to detect the movement of molecules of air. And that's how they detect magnetic fields. And so every single one of these gates, there are 10 now because one was created later, and this doesn't have this. Only the 9 ancient ones have. They detected the magnetic vortex, exact point where a human head would cross. So everybody that goes into the city of Alatri to this day has their brains tuned to 110 megahertz. That's why people go there, because they know sometimes they hear other people's thoughts, they hear other people's emotions, they hear phrases from people that are way beyond the place that they are, but still inside the city. And this is dormant technology, because they now, that's what the Catholics did, they took all of these ancient structures, they demolished it down and built their churches exactly on these nodal points of focus of telluric energy and fault lines that create this resonance. Because what academics discovered is that to produce these effects, you have to have what they call the trident of frequencies. One frequency comes from the fault lines constant rubbering that creates an infrasound. Then you have the sound that is produced by humans into the structure. And then you have the third sound that is the final sound that produces the effects, that is the sum of those sounds. For instance, when a pipe organ tune guy goes to a church and tunes the organ, and then at the end he plays a song to see if it is all right, if you record that song, when you play it back, there is a tune overwhelming all of the music that is played, that is the tune produced by the church itself, by the monument itself. They replicated it. The difference between cathedrals and churches and ancient megalithic structures is that the megalithic structure created the sound that worked inside and spread through the land. And the church and the cathedral concentrates all of that inside the structure. It creates, if used properly, it creates the sensation of contact with the divine, the sensation of bliss, of being in touch with some form of God. And that's why it led people to give everything they had to the church, because the feeling was real. Independently of the story is correct or not, the feeling was real. That's why there was this fervor to go to the church. It's a drug. Every time the bell rang, the hammer would not hit the hammer.
I was going to suggest the bells, and of course, which brings up grand workings of metal also, when you think of the ancient bells of India. And I do wonder about their purpose sometimes, if the bell was to call the primates to lunch.
Exactly. And if you record your history, you will know that when came the times of war, all of the bells were removed from the churches and replaced. Why? Because we no longer wanted people to go and have peace. We want people to be angry, to go to war. And so all of that was removed, and that cycle of mind enslavement was removed, so that people will start feeling anger and go to war and fight for their country. It's no more time for bliss and sensation of the divine. It's time to fight. So all of that was removed, and the ceremonies were cut. The ceremonies took the music out. The bells were removed. So all of this fills into this sound technologies that we are using today and try to explore it today.
And we might be seeing that in Venezuela right now, or in the Havana syndrome.
I think I need to stop and breathe for a second. You know,
I'm going to roll some dice here. I'm going to see if we got a winner. So I'm going to roll 5
This
D100.
It's an exciting moment, isn't it?
And the first D100 is going to be our winner. So let's see. I roll 5 because
who's going to win? Who's going to win? I got mine over here.
You got yours. All right. So the first number is 97. And do we have a winner for 97? We don't. We've already had a winner there. I can't read who it was. Mr. Rizzo, perhaps. Let's see. 68. Is 68 a winner? 68 is not a winner. 68 is actually blanked out. I guess we've already used
triple
that
X
number.
Triple X.
So that's why I roll 5 now. Otherwise, I'd be rolling 1 at a time. How about 77?
Isn't that a movie? Isn't
77's already been taken. 76, Elizabeth Herrera. Congratulations, Elizabeth.
All right.
Feel free to send me a private text with your address, and we'll mail out a replica.
Let's go. Congratulations.
Josephina head. Awesome. All right. Glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
So, Ricardo, what could you leave our audience with? Because, you want to leave us with something that we need to go forth and research. So what do you think?
We got the Tridactyls.
Get the Tridactyl logo up.
Yeah.
What can I recommend? Is that what you're saying to people to look at?
Well, what would be your final sort of word that to either inspire us to research or maybe even read? I don't know.
Well, I don't like to tell people what to do in that regard, but I think that if people give more attention to what is on the very edge of science, there is archaeoastronomy and archaeoacoustics, they will find a world of magic that they think they can only find in Star Trek or Lord of the Rings. They start to understand that, for instance, the cult of the ancestors is not what we've been told. It's not going to a place and do a ceremony to honor the fallen. Is going in there and activate the stone to tell us the stories that the elders impregnated in the stones themselves. This is what we're trying to recreate today in labs, because when they're doing the ceremonies inside the structure, there is this thing called long distance communication. They were all in tune and all connected all around the world at the same time. This is why the ceremonies didn't last an hour, they last a week, so that everybody could be reached. Everybody was in contact at the same time, in the same period, but in different places. Energy flows through the crystal matrix of the earth at almost 9 kilometers per second. So everything that was being produced into these structures was being conducted by the crystal matrix of the earth into the other sites around the globe. That's why all of these megaliths look the same. That's why the techniques of construction look the same at the same time. There is a diffusion that is being denied in our history because we all say that it is independent invention. It doesn't exist. It might be one case or two cases, but it doesn't justify it all. It's this connection from the ancient world that allowed Iberia to have 7,000 years of peace. You can't find that. There were no weapons in the Sumerians in the Iberia until 4000 BC. Until 4000 BC, there were no weapons. You can go in the archives and look into history. They had stone axes, yes. They had bow and arrow, but that's for hunting. The invention of tools whose only purpose is to kill another human being started at that point after a huge cataclysm that is known as the Burckle crater that involved around 6 impacts in the earth at around the same time that destroyed the ancient world. Around 4000 BC. You can look at my paper or my video on my channel called 4000 BC. It explains why we find fossils at the base of the pyramids, because all of that was flooded, because there was an impact in the Atlantic, 2 in the Pacific, probably 1 in the Americas that the ancient Indians recorded, and 1 massive one in the Indic at about 600 kilometers from Madagascar that produced in Australia 300 kilometers inland chevrons of a massive height. These chevrons are the produce of tsunamis, right? So all these reports of burning rain, it's of immense flooding, of weeks and weeks of rain that started, as I said, as boiling water and then turned into cold water, flooding everything, that I include possibly as something that reburied places like Göbekli Tepe, because there is a huge lake at the top of a mountain that is highly unusual, and that lake overflow, and you can still see in the geology the hydro morphology of the water coming down the lake and flooding and filling everything with the silt very slowly coming down. That's why the structures were not destroyed, because it's a slow movement of silt and mud and everything. That's why those rocks there are bare, nude, because everything was removed. The same happened in Portugal. And I start with this because in Portugal, we don't have the ice. So I couldn't justify what I was seeing with the melting of the ice as we can do in the Americas, because there was no ice to produce that. So what produced it? And I found this Burckle crater event, and then I found that the Burckle crater is not alone. There are multiple impacts at the same time. Probably all the remains of the same thing that fell during the Younger Dryas that keeps circling, and then fell down 9600 BC, then 7000 BC, then 6000. I'm not giving the precise numbers, but it was cyclical.
Could you say what is the name of this event?
Burckle crater.
Burckle.
Yeah, Burkle.
Did we cover the story of the levitating boy? Somebody mentioned that in YouTube.
The levitating what? Sorry.
The story of levitating boy. Someone asked about Steve Wilbur in Tennessee.
Did you cover that? Did you talk about that in detail already?
I don't know what that's referring to be honest.
I don't know if he's talking to me.
He was talking about. I think he's talking to you. It was about when you were talking about sound and churches.
Oh, no, I haven't looked into that, because I try to stick to academic material in order, because this is all so fantastic by itself.
Yes, it is. That's how I feel about
there's also the monks that were that I read about were levitating as well in Tibet and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah. I can tell you this. You know that if you give the right tone with your voice, you can break a glass, right?
Right.
So what happens?
David Bowie was I saw an old interview of David Bowie talking about this.
Sure. So imagine that you can have, and this has been done, there's videos of this in YouTube. You can do a very slow motion of what's happening to the glass, right? And what happens to the glass right before it breaks? It's like plasticine. It's like a complete malleable thing, right? And then you go into places like Indonesia, Cambodia, and you see that these temples have hundreds of the same statue that are exactly the same. How is it possible? How many artisans they had building these statues? Because they were built in a very short period of time. How many people were there trying to create this with small tools that are softer than the stone that they are working? How is it they can perforate through the stone? There is massive pillars with holes that you can fill a metallic strain. I can say it in English, and it goes through the stone and comes out the other way. It's not possible to do that. So imagine this. If you know the correct frequency to any single material, you can transform it into a malleable piece. And if you can turn it into a malleable piece, you just have to have a mold. You produce the frequency, you soften the stone, and you puff, and it's exactly always the same thing. I'm simplifying it terribly, but it's just to give you a notion of how many of these
notions.
All of this, how this could be achieved, because everything through sound can be transformed into a soft material. It's like jelly, right? It's exactly as the glass. If you could sustain the glass in that structure where it is completely malleable, you can transform the shape of the glass without heating it up. And
is that stuff like the megahertz stuff? Is that real? You know,
it doesn't need megahertz because you can do it with your voice.
Nice. Because people are advertising that stuff, you know, online and all that.
There are three types of sounds. There is infrasound that goes up to 16 hertz. And you call it infrasound because we cannot listen to it. And then is the sound that we hear that goes from 16 to 22,000 hertz or 22 megahertz. And then there is ultrasound. There is the sound that only dogs can hear. On the other spectrum, for instance, elephants communicate with one another through infrasound that can go hundreds of kilometers or hundreds of miles, and they can communicate because they feel the sound from their paws. The paw on the ground feels the infrasound, and that's how they communicate. We can't hear it, but they can. It's not through the ears, it's through the body. It's like When you go to
Wow.
the Tarxian temples, that is still there. It doesn't have a ceiling, so you cannot recreate a resonance. You cannot create a stable standing wave. So you cannot reproduce the effects that you could when it was built. However, there is these orthostats that go in a long corridor to the main chamber at the end. These orthostats have dimples in it. And these dimples, when the academics were there studying this site for archaeoacoustics, the guy found, oh, it's funny, these dimples. And he put his fist in one of the dimples of the stone. And what he felt is exactly what you feel if you have a subwoofer or a woofer at home when you're playing music and you put your hand, you can feel the air, right? Exactly the same thing. The site is still active. It's still working. It just doesn't have a ceiling in order to contain that sound inside. The stone was producing these vibrations that you can still feel with your hand. Right?
Yeah.
All of this technology was based on sound.
Do they use copper bowls, copper rods, and things like that to amplify the sound in any way?
I think if you go to places like Tibet or Nepal, you'll find that probably. But this technology predates all of that, or our knowledge doesn't include copper or metallic objects. It was all built with stone and crystal. Because one of the things that is denied in history is, for instance, in Britain, you don't find only, and even in the US, you don't find only flakes of stone. You find thousands of quartz crystal pieces. And they were used somehow for something that we don't still understand. But we know that, for instance, what we call, you know what a sarsen stone is? You heard the name for sure.
I've heard the name, of course. Yeah, what is that?
So a sarsen stone is the stones, like the blue stones that you find.
You mean the Samson stone?
Yes.
Sarsen
No,
stone.
It's supposedly from the inner earth, right?
No, it's no. So the sarsen stone.
How do you spell that?
Sarsen is Sarsen. Sarsen stone. So the name itself is misleading, because what is a sarsen stone? Sarsen stones are some of the stones that are used in these megaliths. For instance, in Stonehenge, the outer circle is with sarsen stones that came from 400 miles away.
Wow.
And they select it specifically. That's why I say that they select the site, they select the mineralogy of the stones, and the mineralogy is different according to the functionality of these sites. But what is a sarsen stone? A sarsen stone is 99.3 to 99.8 pure quartz crystal. So the name is misleading because it's not a stone at all. It's actually a gigantic crystal, and crystals resonate. And we know that these structures work with piezoelectricity produced by the weight of the stones on top of the stones, producing pressure. Then the sound adds to that pressure and enhances that effect. In fact, you know that if you put a piece of granite or a piece of high content quartz stone, no matter what it is, on a hydraulic press, you're going to produce light just by the pressuring of that stone. Right? Now imagine what a standing wave can do, increasing constantly on that power. You can store information, you can draw information, you can alter states of consciousness, you can long distance communication. All of this is evidenced you can defend your site or protect it. You can do all of these things just by these ancient technologies of stone. So, and that is all on my book, The Resonant Earths, that I try to keep, as I'm saying it here, I try to keep it all scientific so that people understand that this is not woo-woo. This is actually...
I understand. I do the same
reality.
thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I was talking to someone in a chat recently, and he had asked about my theories, and he's like, well, I was just kind of feeling out people's different ideas. I'm like, well, these are more than just ideas. This is what I've found through research. The evidence provided this, right? So it is a key difference, because we're in an environment where we encourage speculation, but we always have to differentiate and say, this is what we found out. I want people to speculate, believe me, because that's fun, that's imagination, and as we discussed earlier, it's the beginning of science.
They have a summer solstice event with Stonehenge where they have like they have like all these crystal bowls, and they have it in the middle of Stonehenge, and people from all over the world go over there, and they have the singing bowls, and they got like a ton of singing bowls all around them, and they play them, and it's
That-
supposed to be this healing thing, but it's more so of a ritual event than, and it's for
It's a
people, it's
bonding
more
event, right?
healing.
Because humans need that sort of.
if you look into my paper, the Osiris Shaft. The Osiris Shaft is a very peculiar place. It is
Shaft.
Osiris Shaft. There is a causeway that goes from the Sphinx to the pyramid, and at about 9/10 of the way from the Sphinx, there is an entrance to the left on the causeway itself that leads you to the Osiris Shaft. The Osiris Shaft has 3 levels. On the first level, there is 6 carved structures on the bedrock where they put stone sarcophagus. All of this is, the sarcophagus are highly crystal content, and the structure is limestone. But at the bottom, you'll find a lake, and in that lake there is a sarcophagus where only the stone would be above the water. And around this sarcophagus are 4 pillars of high crystal content. Those pillars were destroyed. How do we know that the site is still active? Because at the bottom of that lake, of that structure, there is the water. And that water is incredibly pure. In fact, is what we call living water or structured water that is now being used in labs to store information, to numerous applications that it's like science fiction. And we know it's still active because this is produced by vibration itself. It's
Where
by
is this located?
The Osiris Shaft.
Egypt.
So, Egypt. So we know this is still active because the water, what is living water? Is water in molecules that are hexagonal. And because they are hexagonal, all molecules fit perfectly, leaving no space for impurities. So although there is all sorts of debris on the water, garbage and so on, the water is still as pure as you can get, right? And if it is excited further, it transforms itself into a form of gel. So when you go to this ancient, I believe, and people can look at my paper, The Osiris Shaft, that is on Academia Edu, on the Institute for Natural Philosophy page on Academia Edu. You'll find that when I put down those frequencies, those boxes and those effects, and filling the boxes with this living water, for instance, today we are using the same system to treat broken bones. And when you put one person for 15 minutes, twice or 3 times a week inside these chambers with this living water and these frequencies, the healing of the bone is up to 60% faster. But then if you go to the lowest level, where the legends may indicate that that's where Osiris was revived, we find not only the sarcophagus inside the water with the water inside it, we also find these 4 pillars around this structure that would conduct energy to that sarcophagus. So it would be like a reviving tool, the ultimate healing technology, if you will. So, and in that paper, I think I present very compelling evidence, not that I discovered the reality, but it's very compelling evidence that this was a medical facility in Giza Plateau.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very exciting. I think
So
we're going to wrap this up, Ricardo.
that area would be like the medical
9 o'clock
facility.
bedtime. Go ahead, keep going.
Okay, old man, calm down.
Just wanted to get it out there.
We have a special guest, and
I
we're
know,
trying to cut
I know,
it
but
off, you know.
You do? You have to present it to me.
I am old man, so 9 o'clock ends up being my
We
my
haven't
breakdown
even
time.
we haven't even had our
Go ahead.
commercial, man. What's going on here? You know. Thank you for watching the Resonant Earth Ancient Technology Telluric by
So were you saying
Ricardo
something?
Calavario,
You were saying
the
something
author.
to him, or you have a question for him? But I was going to say,
Please
wrap it up.
buy
Joe.
this on Amazon Prime.
Basically,
for
what I was going to get to is like we
$21.99.
need a part 2. Clearly, for this is kind of where my mind went. I'm like, we need a part 2 for this.
It'd be my pleasure.
We need a sequel. So yeah, any last word? I asked him for a last word a half hour ago too. So, any other final words for our audience? We've
Anybody, the
posted your
chat.
bio, your books.
Anybody on
Again,
the chat?
Yeah, oh, that's a good one too. Let's do that before we go. Any questions for Ricardo from the chat? That's important. So
Anybody.
We've been pretty good posting questions and getting them answered. So I think maybe we're doing a good job there.
I think everybody is done. I mean, that was so much information. Everyone is kind of pooped out right now. That's a lot of information in one night.
But do you, Mr. Jesus, do you have
Part
any
two
final
with
questions?
the Red Bull Chaser.
Part 2 with the Red Bull Chaser.
So basically, you're going to be reinvited back in because you have a lot of information and people want to see you again. That's pretty much what people are saying right now.
Do you know what? That has been the case with most of the guests, though, I'd have to say, whether it was Stig or Bruce Fenton on his.
I know. All your guests have been super interesting.
Super top quality guests. I guess you have to thank X for that. So, yeah, any last comments or questions yourself then, Mr. Jesus, for Ricardo here?
No, I am completely done. I am so stoked that we had this amazing guest here, and thank you so much. You are absolutely reinvited. I say 5 stars from 1 to 5. You are by far one of the best guests that we have had. If we had are you
going to make a presentation, Mr. Jesus? I think you're going to have to put something together now.
Oh yeah, I know. I have I mean, we could save that for another time, I guess.
You have to save it for another time. Oh, yeah. Also, before I leave you, gentlemen, too, I like to leave it on something fun. So, what sort of fandom, sci-fi kind of things are you planning to watch or get engaged in? You know, fun stuff. Something light.
For me, that's for me.
Give me some fiction that you guys are going to get into.
I think you have to consider that I've been here probably as long as you have experiences this planet. And what I find now is today there is a complete lack of imagination, of creativity that doesn't actually carry me on to follow that straight. So I still keep going to the classics. I still keep going to Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek as it is.
But there's so much content for all of those.
Have you seen the new Star Trek Academy?
It's terrible.
What? No. I gave you 5 stars that went down the scorecard. I'm sorry.
Fans are.
No way did you just say terrible to Star Trek Academy.
They took it too far. You don't need. You already had strong women in there. You already had great characters.
You didn't need a Gemma Darn lesbian.
You didn't need it to take that far or to violate.
Here's the question. We got a question for you.
Go.
The Orville coming back? Or is the Orville going to be a movie? Love the Orville. Hey,
I heard it's coming back.
Steve wants to know, what are you working on now? Steve wants to know that. Yeah. Well, Steve, now I'm working on trying to transform my 4 papers on copper into 1 paper.
Nice.
I have to remove any conjecture of a new world or transatlantic travel, and I have to create a letter to be sent or to be rewritten, to be sent to the museums, trying to engage them into this new phase of testing.
So a bunch of red tape.
Yes.
You have to encourage. You're going to have to encourage Professor Ed Casas over here to write his book, because he has not written his book. I've been trying to push him. And here you are. You have a book already with Resonant Earth, Ancient Technologies of Telluric.
I said that's, the research is still going, I feel like. We're still learning. So
come on now. I need to see a book from you, Ed.
Maybe.
I want to see a book.
I think I'm in a different kind of dynamic where I'm like, this is happening in real time.
That sounds like perfection. That sounds like every writer that I've ever heard of that never finishes a book.
Ed has much more than a book in him, because he has a life story to tell. Yes! He has his research to tell. Yes! He has much more in him. So than just the Tridactyls. And I don't see just as
Silmarillion. Yes,
Silmarillion, right? That should have been the Lord of the Rings.
We should be seeing 10 books from Ed right now. There should be 10 in a row. So
Well,
Look
thank you
at
guys for
his
coming.
face.
This
Look
was
at
a
his
great
face.
show. We did 2 hours, 2+ hours. I appreciate that. And it's awesome. You know, when it's just me here, I
Yes.
go like 44 minutes and I'm out. So this
And
was
he
awesome.
is the best storyteller and the best Santa Claus out there too. Whenever he plays Santa Claus, he is the best.
Retired.
No, he ain't. Don't believe it. Don't believe it.
Live long and prosper, gentlemen. I will see you guys all online. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for everyone for watching and listening. And I think we might have another.
I don't know about Ricardo coming back with that Star Trek comment now.
I can't lie. I won't lie.
I am ending the
won't.
stream before it gets political. Bye. Thank you, guys.
Star Trek politics here.